Kevin.
How's it going, Job?
It's been a crazy year a little bit getting to know you, coming out from BC and being probably the only guy who lived in our house and rented from us that actually talked to us. So
Yeah.
wanted to get on here and talk a little bit about you coming out here and your background and what you've been doing while you've been in BC. You've had quite the ride, so if you want, give us a little intro about you and we'll go.
So I grew up in just small town Ontario. Obviously went through high school, all the normal stuff. Lived in the same house pretty much my whole life. Did a couple trips, whatever. Ended up going to school 2 hours from where I live at in St. Catharines at Brock University. So that was 2 hours near Niagara Falls. 4 years biology. I started actually in biomed, and then I switched to biology after first year because the biomed program was way too weird and heavy. But so yeah, I did that.
What kind of biology was that?
I started in biomedical science, and then I switched from that program into an honors biological science.
Okay.
So that's what I ended up getting my degree in. So just my undergrad, nothing past that. And then just did the normal school thing, came out of it, felt a lot better about everything. I did well. I was actually really, really proud. I had a high enough average in there too. I got first class status, so I didn't just dog it. I actually did pretty well.
You tried.
Yeah, frig, way too much effort. Like, it's a lot. And then came out looking for jobs and realized pretty quick that it wasn't what you think when you first get out. You're not just going to walk into a place, say, hey, I have a biology degree, and they go, awesome, you're hired, 80 grand, let's go. So, yeah, after looking for jobs for a while, I worked for my parents. Actually worked in a restaurant for a bit as a hostess, not even a server, just
I forgot about that.
just clearing tables. But just cleared tables, made dog bones for my parents, and then I ended up finding a job. When I was looking in my area, I was looking in Ontario, and I was looking for stuff near me, and I couldn't find anything. And then I was looking for stuff a bit further. I couldn't find anything. So a couple of jobs popped up, I think, in Alberta, and I was like, all right, let's throw some applications out there. And then something popped up here and there, and stuff popped up in BC, and all of a sudden I got a call, and I was like, oh, I didn't even remember applying to the job. But
so your original reason for coming out here was actually for work?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I thought it was just a random choice.
No, it was. I made the decision that I was okay moving wherever, and then a job came up in BC in Langley, and I said, "All right, cool." It worked out really well because that's like where I wanted to go.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's a lot different than most people. Everyone's trying to find a job as close as they can to their house as possible.
Yeah.
I don't think many people are looking across the country yet for a new career.
No, and I think it's a process too, because I did start nearby thinking like, I'll stay at home, live at home for a while, bank the money, just whatever. But that's not what happened for sure.
So you found the job, you got the call, and you decided to move out.
Got the call. Luckily, I remembered enough about the job to not sound like an idiot in the interview, and then followed through with the next interviews. And yeah, I was actually the first person they hired remotely. And then, yeah, flew in. Or sorry, I didn't fly in. I drove. I didn't even have a car. I had my uncle, my aunt had quit driving, so there was a car sitting there, and my uncle had asked me a couple of times to buy it, and I didn't want it. And then all of a sudden I was moving to BC, so I was like, all right, I guess I want that car now.
Get there somehow and all your stuff.
Yeah, so I fit everything I needed into Ford Focus hatchback, drove out here, which was kind of nice because I used to drive to school all the time. Every time I would move into school to and back during the summers, it was always just into a small car. I always moved myself in and out, so it's something I'd done before, but definitely not that extreme of a trip.
Did you have any idea what the facility looked like or anything where you were going to be working? Did they show you anything, or was it just a call and that was it? You were sold?
Yeah, barely. It's kind of funny too, because after the fact, because it's a fly farm, so it's something that is definitely pretty novel and not all the people would know about. So they have a few YouTube videos, whatever, just showing some of the stuff. So that's what I initially just looked at, and then I looked at it, seemed cool. I read about the company. It seemed like a really cool company. Like the sustainability of it's awesome. And it was in line with what I kind of wanted. And then they just told me on the interview, they tried to just make it sound as bad as possible. Cause I guess they have people show up and it's not uncommon. They'll work like a week and quit because they don't like the atmosphere there. Just you're farming flies. You get past it really quick, but some people don't want to stick around and get past it.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
So I'm surprised they would let somebody come in remotely to do that because normally they walk you around to see if you can handle it.
They were probably just as nervous as you having someone come all the way over here.
Probably, yeah.
What the hell the facility looks like. They thought you were just going to drive across the country and then leave.
Last 2 days.
How were you picturing the trip and everything and showing up and what was going to happen and then what actually happened? Like, was it good? You know, was it what you were expecting or?
Yeah, well, I think the best thing is that I think like a week ahead is far in advance for me usually. So once I knew I was coming, I was like, all right, sick. So I got to quit my job. So I did that and then got the car in order and then ended up having to, I think initially I was supposed to come in like 2 weeks and I ended up calling back. I'm like, hey, like I need an extra week. They're like, yeah, no problem. But, yeah, so all I was thinking was, cause I was actually moving out like right around my birthday too. So all I knew was the first bit of drive, I could go stay at my friend's house. I was like, okay, sick. Like, so this is all in my head. It's not what's my life going to look like in a month.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, BC's going to be sick. I don't got to worry about that. It'll be fine, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was, okay, next week I got to go. So I'll drive right to my buddy's house. So I was just planning my days of driving and even the drive out here was, I decided where I was going to stay that night the morning of. So like I'd get in my car and I'm like, okay, no, I'm getting to my buddy's house. So I didn't book any of my hotels or anything. I just drove to my buddy's house and then stayed for a day. And then it was, okay, how far am I going to drive today? I'm like, all right, here. So I was like, all right, better find a place to stay. All right, cool.
Yeah, the last minute travels.
Yeah. And then luckily too, I had my sister's friend who's been he's out in Alberta for a while doing oil stuff and then came into BC. So he actually had a place for me to stay. He had a house, he sold it, and now he's living in a fifth wheel. So I stayed on his couch in his fifth wheel for the first 2 nights. So again, too, it's just I knew I had a place to stay when I got there, and then everything else was just I'd figure it out as I go. I know I'm resourceful enough to.
Yeah, you can make it happen, whatever you've got to do.
Yeah. So it's weird to say. I never really, looking back, I don't think I ever really pictured what things would come of it. I just knew.
You just going with it, didn't matter.
Go with it, didn't matter.
It'll work out in the end.
And the biggest thing too is there's nothing stopping me from repacking up my car and driving right back home.
Yeah, so it's still in the same country. You can make it back. It's not that big of a worry. Well, I mean, for you, for some people, I don't think they would have been able to do that, which is what I think is the cool part about that. And getting here, where was the first, like those places you were just crashing, kind of staying, what was the first place you stayed at when you got here? Like when you were looking for a long-term place, something more than a couple nights, what did you end up finding, and how was the first spot?
Oh gosh, I'm just remembering now too. Well, first I showed up at his place, and then the tricky thing was he didn't have internet, because the first thing I knew I had to find a place to stay long term, and he didn't have internet at his trailer. So I'd have to go just stay at Starbucks all the time, which was just horrible, living out of my car, driving here, and then I had to live out of my car at Starbucks. I ended up staying at the sketchiest Airbnb that I'm remembering about now, where I literally, actually, this is funny. I was in talks with your brother about coming to rent off you guys, because I found you guys through just Craigslist.
Yeah. So at that point, we owned a house in South Langley, just outside of Vancouver. We were renting all the rooms out separately. And we had actually closed the deal on selling the house. So we threw up an ad for short-term rental for the 3 months until the new owner took possession. So that's the ad that Kevin would have seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it might have only even been like 2 months at that point.
Yeah, I think it was like a month or so in.
Yeah, which at the time too, because I saw it and I was like, all right, 2 months. I was like, all right, that's sick. That buys me way more time, because right now I'm thinking this sucks. Like, I got a sketchy Airbnb, talking to Jamie about it, and then went in, saw him. It's like, okay, cool. Like a guy, he's actually legit my age. So,
well, what was the Airbnb like? Like, why was it so?
I thought I was gonna die.
Why? I mean, because I've never had a bad Airbnb experience. I've stayed a few places in Canada, Toronto, Vancouver, and then overseas in Europe, but it's always been, I've never had a bad or weird experience yet. So I find it usually quite safe or good. So I'm curious to hear about.
That's the only bad one I've ever had, and it was pretty brutal. Well, it was because the way I justified getting off his couch and just renting something for right now was because obviously Airbnb is not the cheapest way to do it.
So you were sleeping on someone's couch through Airbnb.
I was sleeping on his couch through a friend, and then I found a place on Airbnb, and I showed up, and it was like the quickest like paint job reno ever. It was so weird. It had like a fence.
And it was a house, though.
It was a house.
Yeah.
And there was multiple rooms. I don't even think I realized there was multiple rooms when I booked it because I always
So there was a bunch of you in there.
Yeah, there wasn't though. It was me and this guy who used to be homeless, who's an artist, and he just like had the coldest eyes. I was so sketched out.
How much was this place per night?
It was cheap. It was like I can't remember. I think it was like
you
30
did
bucks
the
or something.
cheap Kevin.
Oh yeah. It was like $30. Well, because I didn't want to spend like
okay.
$100 a night. Because I'm thinking, if I stay here a week, I don't want to pay $100 a night. I'd rather just find a place to stay.
So
But I
you were
was
trying to
buying
find
time.
something cheap to make sure the job and everything were decent.
Yeah, well,
to
just
kind
to
of-
have internet and try to find another place to stay. That was mostly it. So I didn't have to stay at Starbucks all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
It was just like a place to stay where I actually had internet, but wasn't just on the couch with no internet before I found a place to stay.
Yeah.
So it was weird. But then yeah, so I had that. I think I saw your guys' place and then had that sketchy experience, and I didn't even sleep there. I got in, had a shower, and I was just
It was that weird.
this place is horrible. I think I paid for 3 nights. I just bailed. So then I
So
just
it was just nothing.
drove
in
back
there
to
but a weird artist.
drove back to the trailer couch, and then I think the next day text you guys back, text Jamie, and just said, "Hey, like, yeah, I'll take it."
I want to have an Airbnb experience like that now. I got to start booking cheaper places. I'm spending too much money on that damn app.
Yeah, if you want to get a scary experience.
Oh.
I wish I would have bought art off that guy because I feel like it would have been cool to look back on because he's like, "Oh, I'm an artist. I was homeless
That
until tonight."
it would have been a really good story behind the art, having it in your house.
That's how cheap and shitty it was. Is it's like a step above being homeless. Is he's staying at this place.
Oh, and then you saw our ad, and you ended up moving in with us.
Mhm.
And how was that?
Yeah, I just remember showing up. Yeah, just seeing, like you said, your brother Jamie, my age, and just didn't even think because I never really talked to any of you for the first like month or so. I only spoke to 2 of the guys you had renting downstairs. There was an older guy who was on the rocks right now with his kid or something like that, so he's just getting away. And then
I forgot about that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, we even had some weirdo renters too. Yeah, he was an older guy, and his wife. I don't know. He was having troubles with the wife and the kid, and he just had to take a break, and he was just literally basically sleeping at our house.
It's like his kid just came back, and him and his kid weren't getting along. So just to settle everything, he just left and rented a place around the corner. I think he lived around the corner, so he was still like walk home, cut his grass, and then come back.
yeah.
Guy had it rough.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Oh,
Yeah, it was him, and then just like another young guy who, I don't know, he was just a few years younger, and I
thought-
could tell he's in that like party, do whatever.
wasn't that the
stage.
guy who flew planes, or he was going to school to be a pilot?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I don't remember. He's played baseball. That's all I remember.
Oh, okay. He was out here for baseball. Yeah. Because I mean, most of our renters we had never really talked to. Everyone kind of minded their own business. No one ever tried to talk to us. I mean, sometimes we're not the most approachable people.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of people think a lot of times that we're, Jamie and I look mad or I don't know, just don't always have an inviting look to us, I guess.
Yeah.
And we also lived upstairs, and you were downstairs.
Yeah, there's a separation of it too.
Yeah, most of the renters are downstairs. So I think a lot of times they just felt like, that's their area.
Yeah.
This is mine kind of thing. So they didn't really come up. And well, especially from the short-term renters, we had some longer-term who, that definitely became friends with us. But for the short-term people, you were the only person. I remember you came home that day with the case of beer. I think it was a case of Bud Light or something, and you asked us to have a beer. And I was like,
it was St. Patrick's Day. That's what it was.
and I think it was a weird day too because you were working those weird shifts, right? Your job was you didn't have Friday, Saturday off.
No,
right?
I worked straight
Saturday,
weekends
Sunday.
for the first like 6 months that I was there. I had like a Monday, or no, I think think I had Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday,
I
Wednesday.
think it was
weekend.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, just brutal weekend, not conducive to anything.
Yeah, it was weird because I remember a couple times where you were like coming home with beer or other things, and I'm kind of like, it's a weird day for that.
Yeah, and even still, yeah, you probably saw a couple times. I still didn't even like do anything for the first while because I would just go to work, come home tired, whatever, and I was just focusing on work because I showed up and wanted to do a good job at my work and figure everything out and learn. So I was kind of just going to work, coming home. Again, the weird weekends, so I would just come home, pretty much just watch Netflix, and then whatever, hang out. Maybe I'd go drive. I did a few hikes here and there, but yeah, a lot by myself. So then eventually I hit that point where I was like, hey, like there's this guy living upstairs. He's my age. Like, see if he wants to go grab dinner and get a beer or something. Like,
we had a beer, and then it started. Yeah, we talked, and then when you told us what you did, I remember when you told us that you grew flies. I was so fucking confused. I'm like, what do you? I've never heard of anyone do that. I mean, anyone that I know is always trades, doing, I'm a carpenter, electrician, or welder, or a lot of online business stuff, web designers, stuff like that. But I've never heard anyone say that they've grown flies. I don't know anyone who's gone to school for biology. So it's definitely just stuff that is a little bit unheard of for my realm of
all
friends.
people, I think.
Yeah, so I remember that was hilarious. I couldn't believe you grew flies.
Yeah, it's something I kind of stumbled into and just became an insect guy, not on purpose.
Yeah,
but I think the livestock, it's almost a technology right now what they're doing with the insects, where it's just it's waste remediation essentially. It's just stuff that people can't consume that would otherwise go to the garbage, but it's still human grade stuff. It's just whatever's happened. Maybe it's dropped temperature or something to where they don't want to sell it in a store. Yeah. So it would come to the company where we'd raise the flies out of it, and then you feed the flies to the chicken, and then those nutrients that would have just gone to a dump for no reason now get back into the cycle to go to chickens or a lot of backyard.
Yeah,
it's mostly backyard chickens right now, but even still.
I must have heard that story. Like, I've probably heard you tell that at least 100 times now.
Oh, for sure. No doubt.
Every time we would go anywhere, and when we first started going for dinner, started with a beer, and then I ate out a lot. So every time Jamie and I were going to go eat, we would text you and invite you to come. Started going to Earl's and Cactus and other things. And we knew most of the people there. So every time we would sit down, it'd be like, everyone knows they don't know who you are. So like, oh, who's this? Like, oh, it's Kevin, he grows flies.
It's like show and tell, the fly farmer Ontario guy, not from here.
I love just seeing the reaction on people's faces. Cause I mean, I kind of got to relive the moment every time how I felt. And I got to see that in other people. And it was just so funny because they had no idea what to say. And no one ever believed us. At first they'd always be like, oh, you're fucking with me. He doesn't grow flies. What are you talking about? I'm like, no, he grows flies. I'm serious. And then you have to dive into the whole explanation again. But yeah, that was definitely that was one of the best introductions I've ever had for somebody.
Yeah, I remember you telling everyone. It was always just as much fun for me seeing it too. I'm like, what am I doing that I have all these people freaking out?
I mean,
not in awe, but like confusion.
It's a good way to. I mean, it was just a good conversation starter. It gets the people going. They don't know what the hell. And I mean, you're the new guy. You've got you've got something interesting that people don't know anything about. So everybody always gets to learn something new from it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
After the flies, I mean, well, you're still working with the flies.
Yeah, I'm still working there.
So the fly thing was ongoing, and then after hanging out more, you decided you wanted to start your own business.
Yes. So something I've always thought about is like my dad has his own business and things. So I've always kind of had the idea.
What do they do again?
My dad, him and my uncle and my grandpa, they had started making dog treats. So it was a lot of just like beef marrows, cooked bones, and beef sticks. It's all just like stuff, pepperettes for dogs essentially, and then all that stuff. So that's something that they kind of started doing on the side, and then were able to grow it into a pretty decent business for themselves. So that's something I always saw is that if you can set things up for yourself, especially my dad's the hardest worker. So to work hard for yourself is you're never wasting your efforts.
Yeah.
When you do something like that. So then I showed up and then saw you have your trucks, your truck components, suspension components, and then your brother has his natural vegan, the soaps and things.
Yeah.
So I showed up and saw something I already thought about. I had a friend who just started a brewery back home, so it's already my gears were already spinning. And then I met you guys, and
we're doing something that you were interested in.
And then something I'd always heard about is because I was in the insects, there's more for the edible insects too. So there's crickets. So in my head, I'm like, all right, I got this business idea. I had all the money I saved up while I was waiting to figure out what I was going to do before I came to BC. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go buy 100,000 of these crickets. I'm going to rent this barn, which was too much money a month.
Well, actually, first we had sold the house, and we at this point the house had sold, and we had actually within those 3 months hung out enough times that when I was looking to rent a place, and we were coming down to Fort Langley all the time and getting dinner and going to the pub maybe a little bit too much, and
threw my hat in the ring.
After those, I mean, really only 2 months, we ended up living together. I was looking for a 1-bedroom suite, but if I found a 2, I was open to it. And that's what I found. And we ended up moving in. And then this is when the cricket idea sort of built, spent a little bit more time. And then,
yeah, so it must have been probably 7 months later since I'd first shown up to where I had this, where I started contemplating the idea probably a lot sooner than that. Probably after we had already moved in together in the second place.
Yeah. Yeah, you were already thinking about it. And I mean, at this point, you decided that you were going to stay in BC for a while.
Yeah, so it goes back to, it was anytime anybody said when I was first moving out here, all my friends before I left, they're like, hey, how long are you going? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. They're like, what do you mean you don't know? I was like, I don't have an end time on it. Like, yeah, just I'm gonna go, and like I said,
it feels right.
If 2 weeks I'm sick of it and I want to drive home, all right, whatever. But I imagined I'd stay for at least a year or something, and then it's to the point where I'm getting comfortable here. So I was gonna stay. So I'm like, all right. And one of the things too is looking back, because like I said, I'm renting this barn that's more than my rent here just to stay at my house. So yeah, so it's something looking back. I have a farm property, like it's where they run their business. We have they used to have horses. My family used to have horses on this property. So there's tons of room. Like by all means, my dad, I could have got just a storage container, built some little structure, whatever, and had a place for free essentially. But here I am renting this place, no family support that I would have had otherwise. So,
well, yeah, I remember you saying that a lot of times, like I could just go home and set this up, and your dad, you know, when you guys would call, he would offer for you to do that. Come home, I'll help you out, we'll get it going. But for some reason you wanted to stay here and do it yourself and really put the effort in and prove and give it a shot.
Yeah, it's something knowing that I see so many people do things for themselves. It's I want to know that I'm putting in that effort, and it's me who achieves it when I hit that point. Like,
and it's also your decisions too. I mean, I don't know that much about your dad, but maybe you know, if you're at his place and he's helping, he might be maybe pushy about what he thinks
by all means,
is best. And you know, sometimes, you know, the best way to learn, I think, is fucking up yourself and doing what you think is right, because then you know, I mean, just because someone else tells you something that they believe is right, you never really know until you do it yourself and figure that out. I mean, a million times when I was growing up, my dad would tell me, don't do that, don't do this, and I do that, and obviously turned out like shit, but I realized that, and you don't do it again. But I think that's obviously the best way to learn. So
yeah, doing it myself is, especially too, whether it ultimately succeeds or fails, it's not, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that, or he shouldn't have done this or made me do this. It's everything lies on me. It's my own choices that make or break it, and should it go one way or the other, it's lessons that I know personally I can take on myself. That it was no one else, it was me. I was the one in there every day feeding the damn crickets, like giving them water. Like if they die, it's all on me. So
what was the goal with the cricket business? Like, where did you want to take that to when you started it and it was your idea? And because there's people using crickets for lots of different things.
Mhm.
I understand, but what did you want to do with it?
It was going to be growing them just for human consumption, getting to a stage likely of just producing. And I did produce some. I
Yeah,
made
I
some
forgot you
goodies
used
for
to
you.
make all
Yeah,
the
I made some
baked
goodies for you. I
cricket
made
stuff.
some. I did get to the point where I had a few generations. So every time a generation was to the end, I'd harvest them just before.
How
And
long did it
then
take again for a generation to grow? 3
like,
weeks?
like 2 months
Oh,
up to.
totally wrong.
Yeah. Well, the first batch I'd got already midlife,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, it's up to 2 months. You can start to harvest them after like a month if you
Mhm.
want, but
So you're going to be doing the cricket like goods, protein bars.
yeah, I was gonna
things.
start making the powder, and at first my
Yeah, the
plan,
powder.
yeah, my business plan, because I was so smart, such a smart businessman. I was like, okay, I can't make a lot of it, so I'm gonna make as much as I can. I'm gonna cut it by making these protein cookies, and then I'm gonna sell those. It's gonna do amazing. Sell it all, and then just grow as I grow.
Mhm.
And that was kind of gonna be the plan. Which I knew there was holes in that, but again, comes back to I just want to do everything as I go and learn as I go. And it's not that there wasn't the forethought to
Mhm.
what's going to happen and what might happen. It's just I don't like putting too much weight on what might happen 6 months down the road. I'd rather focus on what might happen in a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, especially in a really, really sort of not broad, but I guess really early stage startup, something like that, that without the experience, you don't. There's not that much planning you can do because a lot of things you're not sure what's going to happen or how
Mhm.
it's going to turn out, and a lot of it is just as you go, trying new things and what's
Mhm.
going to work and what's not. So
Yeah, there's so many things that because before I even bought the crickets, I sketched out so many different ideas of how I was going to do it and all these
Mhm.
different things. I consumed as much information as I could from other farmers and things, but ultimately, as soon as they showed up, like I started trying all these things I thought about and oh, this doesn't work because this or this doesn't work because of that,
yeah,
and things that don't make sense to build or it gets dirty way too fast, and you're like, okay, cool, it works, but it's like, am I going to sit here and clean this every week? Not a chance. Like,
yeah,
that's something the problem right now with the mass scaling of the insect industry, and for some reason I thought I could get around that. Just
the cleaning.
yeah,
Yeah.
cleaning and everything too. Just the fact that I couldn't. I kept trying to make something to give them water, so I didn't have to go there every day and give them water. Because
Yeah, I
the water they
remember.
drink right away. And the biggest problem I had is everything I would try, no matter how small the gap, they would manage to get in there, drown, and then taint the water for everyone.
Mhm.
So I'd walk in and there'd just be this stinky water that has been there for 24 hours, and all of a sudden it's crap already. And sometimes it'd work great, and sometimes it would just screw
Yeah.
up. So now it's all of a sudden, okay, well, I got to try that differently. And the trial and error over and over and over again is just taxing, trying to do all these different things.
Where did you get the crickets from? Your first batch, because you don't just go out into the wild and pick crickets. So
No, it'd be too long.
where did you get them, and the event? The story about going to get them,
Yeah.
and
So
maybe also the truck.
yeah.
Because at this point, I mean, it tied. I think it.
It definitely ties into getting them. Yeah. Yeah. So I looked for a while, and then I was looking for a barn space. And as soon as one popped up, a good one popped up, bigger than I needed, which is again why it's so much. But I was like, I don't want to be moving up into different places. I want to get something that I can grow into, which not a good idea. I should have started at the scale I should start at.
Mhm.
But so as soon as I got that, I'm like, okay, well, I'm paying rent, so I got to get these crickets, and I already sourced some things, and then too, I gotta move in all this stuff. I had to build some rooms to isolate the crickets and be able to put all the insulation up and things. So I'm like, okay, so I need a truck. So I post my car for sale, and then before my car actually sells, I found the best value I thought in a truck. Because I've been looking, and there's all these different trucks you can get for 6,000-7,000, and then a lot of them are kind of junkier.
Mhm.
And then I found this 1985 Volkswagen Transporter. So it's if you know what a Vanagon is, 1985 Vanagon, and all this you can look up. Maybe there'll be a picture in the video, but it's just this van that Volkswagen decided to just cut into a truck, and so it's this single cab van truck thing. And in Ontario, because they salt the roads because we get so much snow, nothing older than like 15, 20 years really survives. It's all junk. So I see this car that's 10 years older than I am, but it's in just pretty good shape. It was in better shape actually than my car, which was 2013. So my car was only like 6 years old, and the rust on them was pretty much the same. So I see this thing and I'm thinking, the coolest thing I've ever seen. And you know what?
You're not used to having the old cars at home.
I'm not used to having those options dangled in front of me. And then with safeties and things too, BC's a lot more relaxed on when you buy a car. In Ontario, as soon as you buy it, you have to get an inspection to change names. Whereas BC, you can just buy it and drive it. It's fine.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity that I never would have had in Ontario. And I'm like, well, if I'm doing it, why wouldn't I go for it? And it's what I've been doing this whole time.
Yeah, it worked out because at that point we all had Volkswagens.
Yeah, you guys had just bought your Volkswagens, I think, just before me.
Yeah,
your TDIs.
Yeah, no, that was it fit in.
Yeah, it was good. That Ford didn't suit us.
So then the van, I remember going to test drive that thing. We went up into
I couldn't drive manual.
Oh, yeah.
I literally couldn't even test drive this truck. I drove in the parking lot a couple times with my brother's car, so I knew I was capable of it. But I knew if I show up, like I'm going to stall this thing 20 times, it's not worth it. So I had to get you guys. Either way, I would have had you come look at it.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because I test drove it, and I thought it was hilarious because the
you
rear
guys wouldn't stop laughing.
I was laughing so hard. I've never driven one of those, and I'm so used to 1-ton trucks, F350s, and all those things. With the rear suspension being leaf sprung and that having coil independent suspension all the way around.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember we were just driving it on the test drive. I was just driving over curbs, like up and down, going right over the corner and stuff. I was like, man,
those half curves, you wouldn't even feel it.
Yeah, it just feels like it's floating over everything.
Yeah.
Just the three of us were in the front. I think I was laughing so hard test driving it. I mean, I didn't think you were actually going to buy it. That was the funniest part. There's not a fucking chance he's going to buy this thing. I'm like, there's no way. And it's been a time since. But so you bought it, well enough and yet. I mean, at first, everything was close. Like your barn was what 5-10 minutes. From
my barn was 10 minutes down the road. My work where we live now is like 6-7 minutes. I've always lived close in town, so I hate the idea of having a commute. So yeah, everything's right close. So I'm like, why not buy this old truck? Worst case, I hop on the bicycle. I can do anything I need with a bike if I had to.
You know, you weren't worried about a breakdown.
No, I just wasn't too worried about it. It was in my price range to where I'm like, yeah, if I have to spend $1,000,
whatever.
It's not the end of the world. That's okay.
So the Crickets, you got the van or the truck, the transporter,
the van truck thing, yeah,
and then you had to figure out how the hell you're going to get some crickets, where they're going to come from, and that whole thing.
Yeah, so we're here in BC on the West Coast, and I decided to find crickets. Again, I love making things hard for myself. So I found crickets for a really good deal in Michigan. So not even nearly close. So the way the guy does it is, if you're that far, is he flies them to you, because obviously, too, it's crickets, they're live, so like, they can't be in a box. The guy packs them in a box, essentially just with cardboard egg cartons, and then he throws potatoes in because that's their food and water is potato, and so they can't really stay in there for more than 2 days.
Yeah, so they only last. Okay, that's what I was going to ask. How long they stay in there, and he air freights them,
and he air freights them.
It's not going to last through UPS or some sort of ground delivery.
Yeah, and then too. So going back to my biology degree and the idea of doing things big, I'm like, okay, well, I can't just buy a few because that's silly, because then I'm just going to have to order more anyways. And I'm like, okay, going through my head.
How many did you buy again?
I bought 100,000 of them. So I'll get to it in a second, but so I'm thinking genetics wise, like, I was like, I can't buy 10,000 because I don't want to breed 1 million out of 10,000. The gene pool is horrible. It's a terrible gene funnel. So I spent $2,000 on 100,000 crickets. And I'm thinking,
that's not bad. How much is that per cricket? That's pretty cheap.
That's a good deal. Yeah, we don't value their lives very much. Yeah. So and then too is just the thought of like, okay, if I spend $200 and not taking it seriously, I've got this big barn. Let's get things rolling right away. So so I just dropped a whole mess of money on a whole mess of crickets. And then the thing too is I had to figure out all the importing myself. So I had to go through, apply for the import permits of them because you have to have the certain species too, is why I had to go so far, as I wanted this species of them. Okay. The tropical brown banded cricket. Yeah, they're fancy crickets. Um, but anyway, again, I was thinking long term because there's a virus in the other one. So I'm thinking, well, in 10 years, I don't want this virus hitting me or a year or whatever. So just thinking long term, but short term, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to figure out the imports.
Trying to get the best.
And then the guy too, he wouldn't fly him across the border either. And so the closest he could get him was Seattle, which is about 3.5 hours from where we are here. So I just bought this truck. I hadn't been on the highway with it yet at all.
Oh yeah.
At all. Like luckily I'd learned how to drive manual by this point. It'd been a few weeks or so, whatever, while I was building the barn. I'd been cruising it around and everything. But yeah, so I first time on the highway, so I'm like, all right, fingers crossed. And actually the only problem I had, because I did have a problem, is the coolant wasn't high enough and I didn't know what to buy, so I just put it off. But I actually had to go a certain speed so that I would get enough air passing the motor, because I noticed that if I'm going slow, the temperature was getting too high, but as soon as I get going fast, the temperature would come back down. So
there's enough airflow through the rad.
So I'm just trying to like speed as much as I can, and anytime the line goes up, I just start speeding.
Yeah.
Driving this old truck on the highway.
And that was the whole way down to Seattle.
Yeah, the whole way down. So I drove there and back. I drove there. I showed up with some foam board and some 2x4s and a drill. So I just showed up, assessed my situation of all these boxes. I just built an enclosure sitting there at the dock. These guys are laughing at me too, by the way. Like they see me, they see these crickets because they can hear them chirping. They're like, what are those? I'm like, yeah, these are literally full of crickets. There's 10,000 in each of these boxes. They're not that big of boxes. They're like, what is that, like 3 feet by 2 feet or something?
Yeah.
Like they're not the biggest box, and they got 10,000 crickets per. So these guys are just laughing at me while I'm building this enclosure. And I'm like, can I stay at your dock? He's like, yeah, it's fine. We won't use this one. Yeah, it's hilarious. And then too, the whole way home, I'm just scared. Like every like half hour, I'm pulling over somewhere, whatever, just trying to listen for those chirps, making sure that they're still happy and alive. Didn't waste $2,000 that fast.
Yeah. Well, because they weren't traveling for that long. He air freighted them and you picked them up next day.
Yeah, they were probably on a plane for whatever hours. They'd probably, by the time I saw him, they'd probably have left his place 12 hours ago, 14 hours ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I still had like 30 hours to play with or whatever.
Oh yeah, you had lots of time.
So I ended up getting him back, and then I got him back. I got all my heat and everything figured out and set up, and then I got him in there, just still in their boxes pretty much, and then just gradually brought the temperature up so that they'd be happy. And over the course of the next day, I got them out of their boxes.
And then, so for growing these, I mean, your goal was to grow to 1 million crickets, or I mean, you said something about 1 million. Right. Is that like, that was just an idea?
I think that was my end of the year goal or something like that. Or within a year, I wanted to make sure I was happy at 1 million, because some of the main farms were running like 5 million or something at the time.
Okay, so you're just,
a lot of those have grown quite a bit since the ones I was looking at, the guys I was watching. But
you started with 100,000. How do you get them to?
So they're actually not.
How do you get more out of them?
They're actually not too temperamental to breed as long as it's nice and warm for them. Which again, running space heaters. So that's another bill I wasn't even thinking about before. It was the $100 and something a month I was paying to run these space heaters. But so as long as the temperature is good, you just put moist peat soil down for them, and they're pretty happy to lay eggs. Although the trick is you got to screen it off, because again, they're always working against you while you're trying to help them. Because the males like to eat the eggs, so you got to worry about screening it off to make sure the males are. And then that's the other thing too, is they're trying to wiggle under that screen. It's all a pain. It's hard to manage. Like you can imagine, like managing like a field of cows is going to be how many cows? Like what? Few hundred or something. Yeah. And you can kind of manage it. You might have a couple stragglers that give you trouble. People only have
10.
Yeah, but now I'm running with 100,000. So like if 1% give me pain, that's 1,000 crickets that are doing whatever the heck to
that's true.
Undermine me.
Even if 1,000 are going eating all the eggs, that's quite a few.
It's brutal. So you just collect the eggs, and once you've collected them, you just pull them out, keep the eggs warm and moist, and then the eggs will hatch after a period of like 10 days or so.
Yeah.
They'll start hatching, and it's cool too. Crickets hatch is they're holometabolous, I believe is the word. I hope I got that right. But they hatch in the same body shape as what they are as adults. So they hatch as just tiny crickets, and then they molt, and then until they're the full size.
Yeah, so they don't look any different. It's just the size.
No, they don't look any different because, like, obviously the flies start as the larva where they're the little wrigglers, and then they'll pupate and then turn into a fly. So they don't look nearly the same, which would be hemimetabolous. I hope I'm getting these words right. I don't remember if I am.
Either way, I don't think anyone's going to know the difference.
I hope not. Don't call me out. I'm calling myself before anyone else does. But yeah, so it's these cute little crickets running around, which is a lot of satisfaction being a cricket dad to these little babies.
Yeah, it feels like you got a lot of kids.
Yeah, I did. Lots and lots of them.
So you were growing them and just messing around with different sort of systemizing and organizing and trying to, make it most efficient and see what you could do in there in the barn. And then as you were doing that, the goal was to sort of create a product out of them. So that's when you started to grow them and would bring them. That's when that's when the home cooking started.
Yeah.
As you were growing them, then your plan was to do these other things. So you would bring them home.
Yeah.
And
because again, too, like looking back, like I had, like when I did all the initial research, I had all the steps planned out. Like I did not have any clue what was going to happen. But it was like, all right, the next couple of years will look like this, and I would plan it out loosely, and then I wouldn't worry about any specifics. So one of the things was, I'll start making products. I'll start testing it, just selling it around town, whatever. And then, so I did the home cooking things, figured out how to dehydrate them and make the powders and things.
Oh,
and
right,
how to
the
work
dehydrator.
with it. Yeah, and then, so then the roadblock was in the fine print details. I wasn't thinking about the fact that I first was trying to sell it to you had a lady that you would get food from sometimes. And we were going to try to get her to buy it off me for those like protein balls or something.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the first time I had somebody go, hey, like you have all the inspections and stuff on this stuff, right? And I'm like, no, I'm growing them in this dirty barn, whatever. I'm just like, what do you mean? And I thought I figured out real quick that what we're doing at the fly farm is all for animal consumption. So the rules aren't quite the same as, and even still some of the stuff there we're tweaking, but yeah, so essentially to do this, you have to be making it, if you think of like a bakery environment, like a commercial kitchen environment, like it has to be all this stainless steel, easy clean stuff. Like you have to have all the professional grade equipment, like my dehydrator.
They have to inspect your facility.
Yeah, and you have to get it all inspected.
Yeah.
So like I fronted like $300 for this dehydrator. Now I'm realizing like the commercial grade ones are all like $2,000 or more. And I'm like, and if I don't have these, like it's not to standard, it's not to code, I'm never going to pass. So now I'm thinking, okay, I got to get these commercial kitchens or something. And I'm like, okay, what commercial kitchen is going to have a dehydrator at the ready for me? Like not a chance. So like I'd have to be renting these commercial kitchen spaces for like a couple $100 an hour or something. And then have to bring my own dehydrator, set it up in there, and then I have to rent the space for 8 hours, whatever, so I can run this dehydrator. Like,
and that's literally just to make some random products.
And that's just to make some flour, some cricket flour, just to mess around with and try to sell around town. Like, that's
it would have been really tough to get your money back.
Super tough, if possible at all. So then the other side would be trying to build my own, but then again, I'm already renting this space. Do I want to spend all this different money trying to get this barn space that I wasn't even thinking about, this commercial grade aspect, like trying to get that place to snuff, trying to get my landlord to be okay with having these inspectors coming through. And even
it definitely wasn't the place for
even
that.
Things like one of the things I was reading is I needed like running hot water, and I was just on a well with a hose there. So like the crickets are fine with it. They have all the minerals and junk in the well, but in terms of like, I don't have a hot water there. Like I'd have to run a gas line and a hot water heater. Like that's impossible. It's not going to happen. Like,
and so
doomed.
So I remember the kitchen stuff not working out so well. And then, but after that, so then you decided to sell them whole, just
so some point in the middle there.
Let's just try and get some sort of return here.
Yeah, because there's a market for them as reptile food. So then something else, I went and I jumped down the rabbit hole of trying to do all that. Put quite a bit of time and research and things into it.
Because you thought about doing a cricket subscription.
Yeah,
Did you not?
I set all that up. Like,
Yeah, so
if somebody would have found it in that month that I had it all set up, they 100% could have signed up for.
Because if you had a reptile, you would have been able to put in how many
By all
crickets you
means,
need.
they could have been buying the sizes they want. They could have punched in all those different numbers and things. I would have figured out their orders. I would have shipped it right to their door. I had Canada Post, all the estimates and stuff set up and things. Like, I got it
set up. And so you did the
there, and I
website.
just didn't have any customers.
too.
Yeah.
So another little loop learning curve.
Yeah, another
you know,
loop. I
having
did the
to-
whole Shopify deal. I got my own domains and things, linked it all up, set up the shop, set up all the shipping and things, figured it all out.
Yeah, so another learning thing. And at this point, well, you when you were actually delivering them for a while, there's that one, or the one guy would come pick them up here.
Yeah.
But there's a couple local deliveries and things, and you would bring them home for the night. And you would bring them home.
Some guys buying crickets tonight. Just come home with a box.
You'd bring them home in little Ziploc, or not as like it was
plastic containers.
It was like
they're like dollar plastic containers from, I think, Canadian Tire.
Yeah, it would just be like a food to go container. Just snap the lid on, and he would bring these crickets home, and I had been to the cricket. I'd been to the barn a bunch. We'd helped set some things up and check it out, and just stop by because it was funny and weird as hell to go there and see all these crickets jumping around in these bins. And
it was a cool big barn space too.
Yeah, it was a cool little spot, and I had no idea what the hell was going on in there except all the crickets. And going there, hearing the crickets when there's so many of them, it's almost like a soothing. I mean, you don't mind the sound. It's actually
cool.
quite.
I really like the sound.
Yeah, it's not.
It's almost like when you hear like rain, where you hear like rain on a ceiling, like a tin roof or something like that, where like it's kind of loud, but you get used to it and it's really soothing. So same deal, yeah.
I thought it would have been a lot more annoying for, show up, be like, oh, fuck, these things sound like, I don't know. But surprisingly, they sounded good. And, but that's the only time I'd ever heard a cricket. When there were so many, I'd never heard them
other than in the distance at night or
alone.
something.
So one time when you brought home these crickets, we had an escapee in the house.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't know what it was for so long. we were here and I remember this thing would wake me up. I mean, I'd be watching movies, like this is literally our couch right here. And I'd be watching movie, the sink or the fridge just over there. And for the first, I guess they're not as loud right away. Right?
It depends, yeah.
The voice kind of, the
chirps.
Yeah, they kind of build as they grow, I would assume. But I would be here watching a movie and I would hear this noise. And I'm thinking, what the hell is that? Like, is the fridge broken? And I would go over there and I would just kind of tap the fridge and it would stop. So I thought, okay, something's just kind of messed up in the fridge motor, whatever the hell it is. And for the first week or two, that's all it was. Like I would hear it every, couple days if I was watching, a show or sitting out here reading or whatever I was doing. And I'd just go and tap the fridge and go away. I'm like thinking, fuck, what? That's so weird, this fridge. And then it started to get so much louder. I would be in my room and it'd be 2 a.m. and it would start doing it. And I'd come out of my room and I'd be hitting the fridge. I'm like, Jesus, I was like, what the hell is going on with this thing? And it would kind of quiet down. I'd go back to my room and then it started to get so bad that like this thing would wake me up constantly. And I still thought it was the fridge. I had no clue. And then I finally, like 3 weeks, and I remember waking Kevin up and saying, dude, what the hell is this sound? And I finally thought, I'm like, is that a cricket? And it was, and you didn't want to tell me that it was because he knew it was, but I had no clue what the hell the sound was. This whole time I think it's the fridge and it's a cricket. And I didn't understand where it was. So at first, I started to get really frustrated. It got to the point where like this thing was waking me up every night it was probably about a month. Like it was bad. And I don't know. I was getting so annoyed. I basically was like, hey, I'm going to find this thing. I'd come out here 3 a.m. I'd pull the fridge off the wall. I'm like pulling it right out in the middle of the kitchen. I'm looking around. I'm like, got my flashlight in the bottom. I can't see anything. And then I do this for another week or so goes by, and I forget where you went. I think you were maybe downtown or something for the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And Jamie was here, and we were going to watch a movie, and it starts going. And I'm like, you've got to be shitting me. Like, this is out of control. We pulled the fridge out, tilted it back, because I'm like, this is the only spot it can be in. And we tilted it, but when you would start to move everything, it would stop. And then if I would go over there and I'd kick the fridge and it would shut the hell up, or I'd move the fridge and then I'd come back and sit down. But 30 minutes later, boom, the thing goes again, or maybe 5, maybe 10, whatever. It depended how it was feeling, I guess. But this time, we took the fridge, leaned up on the back, and we just laid there in silence. I was like, fuck this. I'm going to catch this goddamn thing, whatever it takes. And we're just laying, and we listen. I'm like, dude, it's got to be in there. It's like, and it sounds like it is. So finally pull it off, or we pull the fridge out more. And then we realize it's not in the fridge. I'm like, where the hell is this thing? So we peel the baseboard off the wall, and it's sitting there. And I see it. I'm like, I have never wanted to kill something so bad in my entire life. Like, we see it, but then the baseboard was off behind the counter, and we went to spray it with kitchen cleaner, I think.
That was like the first thing you guys found was clean.
And Jamie goes to spray it. I'm videoing, and he misses, and it goes in behind the counter. And I was actually devastated. I was just looking like, this is not okay. Like, we need to get this thing. This is going to ruin my night. Like, I thought it was going to, because at that point we couldn't reach it. We had to pull the kitchen counters off the wall.
Yeah.
Rip it all apart. So, but it came out, we got it, and we sprayed it and videoed it.
I got all the videos, all the pictures, all the texts.
I couldn't believe it, but I mean, I was so in the zone and so mad at this thing for like it had been building in me. And I videoed it, and we posted the video of us killing this cricket with the thing. And I got so many replies from people like, I can't believe you would do that. Why didn't you just put it outside? And I actually felt bad after. I was like, fuck. I mean, I guess I could have just thrown him outside. I didn't have to make a murder video out of it on Instagram. But man, I was just so in the zone. I could not do it. I had to. It was just like, it was brutal. But that was the only time one had ever gotten loose.
Yeah,
and I mean, that's the last time I hope I ever have.
Yeah, because I brought him home, and I was super careful about it. I remember there was one time where one got out, and I was like, I'm getting you. And I can't remember if it was before or after that incident, but either way, I'm like, if Shelby sees a cricket running around, there might be an issue here. And then I remember when it started, it woke me up one time. I'm like, no way. And then I was like, oh crap, that's a cricket. And I'm just hoping like it stops before Shelby figures out, or I'm hoping it didn't wake him up or something like that. And it got to a point where it was getting bad.
Dude, we both would wake up.
And we'd both wake up to this cricket.
3:30 in the morning.
Because you're right. He wasn't that loud at first, but once he got going, like
it wasn't as loud or as often. Like it was every couple days. Then it was every night.
Yeah, it was literally every night at like 3 a.m. just hearing the chirps. And he was loud. I can't believe how loud he was in this place.
I know. It was actually crazy. I couldn't believe that with my door closed and me sleeping, like it would wake me up like that.
I'm a pretty
loud.
Heavy sleeper for stuff like that.
I mean, like I can sleep no problem if you got the TV on volume 25 and you're cranking a movie out here, whatever. But that cricket, it was just like, it's like the sound just traveled through everything. It was crazy.
Yeah, that was brutal.
And it was even inside the wall. It's not like it was just sitting
behind the fridge, behind the baseboard.
No, it was inside the wall.
Yeah, that wasn't my proudest thing. I didn't.
But that was near the end. That was when.
Yeah, things were toning down because it was to the point where I knew I wasn't trying to get these certifications and things to sell them for food, and then I knew the reptile thing wasn't working out because I had a few people that were buying them off me, but only one of them was even regular. Like the other guys was every like few weeks.
Yeah,
the one guy would come every week, but even still, like the minimal money I was getting off of him wasn't worth the rent and electricity and effort I was putting in. Because you got to remember too, like I'd go to work 40 hours a week, and
true, you're still working.
the best I got it spread out to was every other day I had to go.
Mhm.
So it's every other day I had to drive the 10 minutes there and back, whatever, and do all this
Do the
work.
cricket work.
It's in this hot room, whatever. Cricket's chirping at me, ungrateful.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, so this is the point. It was all winding down.
that's what it was winding down. I mean, I think it actually one more thing when you went home.
Yeah, I went home for a week to Ontario to visit and just see family and things. Yeah,
And that was probably before the cricket incident in the house. I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure the timeline.
I don't remember, but
I believe it.
Either way, you had asked Jamie and I to take care of the
to do the feeding and the watering
of the crickets, and you were gone for 7 days. So the idea was that, like you just said, you have to feed them every 2 days. So there was 2 of us.
Yeah.
So the idea was each of you only has to go one every 4 days. So technically, you each only have to go.
Had to go once. Yeah.
We each had to go once, and someone had to go twice, or we both just.
It was
go.
something like that. Is I'd do it right the day before I left. I'd make sure everything's filled right up. So it was kind of something like, I think one of you would have to go twice, and the other would have to go.
Oh
once.
no, this was over Christmas holidays.
It was Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this was last Christmas.
That's when I would have went home.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that. So. Yeah, the idea was that we each only had to go one time over the holidays there, and I don't know what the hell happened, but or no, we would have to go more than that. We each would have had to gone twice, because every 2 days you're gone for like 7. We each would have had to go
like that,
2 times, and it got the first 4 days had gone by since you had left, and I remember we were sitting there, and I thought Jamie had gone, but he didn't, and he thought that I had gone. And it was so, I mean, and even our dad's place where we were for Christmas is like 2 blocks.
Literally
from down the street.
The backyard is pretty much touch.
Yeah. And
whatever.
I remember I was like, holy shit, I think we, I don't know, I think we might have killed the crickets, dude. I was like, it's been 4 days. Like, I wonder if they're okay. And I mean, 4 days, we were kind of like, all right, like, it's got to be okay.
And I remember too, I didn't want to pester you guys because I'm like, hey, I'm asking this favor, like nagging you about it isn't going to make things better. I'm like, whatever. They said they'll do it.
So you didn't even message us to remind us or anything, and I didn't put it in my calendar. I made no note of it. We just blanked and completely forgot. I'm not used to going to the cricket place that often. So then we hadn't fed them for 4 days.
Yeah.
And then the power went out.
The power went out. Yeah.
The power had gone out, and the crickets were then out of power for three days. I think
that was something I figured out. Was what had happened was I found out that power was starting to go out back there. So I went and I looked, and it gives you like a whole grid of who doesn't have power. And I'm like, oh crap, like my barn doesn't have power. So I think I messaged you guys and I was like, hey, like the power's out. Like if you don't mind, like when you go, just go in there, set all the temperatures to low, bringing them back up slowly, the heat up slowly, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Like when the power came back on.
When the power came back on, to not to shock them. So what ended up happening was the power went out. It would have been out for like 12 hours, whatever. So the temperature would have just dropped, because as soon as it goes, and the insulation I had was okay, but like it wasn't good enough to last forever. And I had temperature monitors too, so I looked back and I could see all this data too.
Yeah.
But so it all dropped, got real cold, and then when the power came back on, everything just jumped back on to max heat as it was set. So all of a sudden it went from, and the first thing the guy told me when I was buying these crickets was, don't do this. Don't have the temperature just climb all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
Well, and we thought we were home free once the power went out, because we're like, oh shit, well that's good, because at least now
power killed them. You guys didn't.
Now we don't have a choice. It wasn't our problem. We couldn't feed them, although we did. So at this point, it's like 6 days. I think you were gone for more than 7. I think it was like I think it was like 10. It was like the Friday to the next something. And at this point, we're like, okay, shit, like what are we gonna do? There's nothing we can do. If they die, they die, and whatever. And so then the power came back on, and we again just blanked. We just didn't do it. I remember we went there the day, literally the morning you flew in. So you had been gone for like 10 days, and we go to the barn the day you're flying in. Like that morning, we're like, shit, we should probably go to the barn. And I'm like, fuck, like, dude, if they're dead or what.
Yeah.
Or no, we didn't even go. That's what we were gonna do. We were like, okay.
Oh no, because I think you guys were scared when I said they were alive.
Yeah.
Because ultimately they survived all this somehow.
Yeah, we
So I
thought.
showed up.
Yeah, because we didn't even go. We were like, should we go right now before Kevin gets home? And then we sat there and talked and thought, well, fuck, if they're dead, they're dead. Like, what are we gonna do? We can't save them now. Like, let's just let him find out. And so we didn't go. And we picked you up from the airport, and then you drove straight there, and they were fine. And we didn't say anything for the longest time because, like, I didn't want to tell you.
I think it was like a week or two or something later. You're finally caved in.
I didn't want to tell you that we didn't touch your crickets for 7 days, but I mean, and we were fully prepared to buy more. I was like, okay, worst case, we killed his crickets because we didn't go. We each pitched $1,000. Get him more crickets if he wants them. Who gives a shit? So we basically came to that conclusion of like, whatever, we'll just buy some more crickets.
Well, at the end of the day, too, when you guys finally told me, because right away you told me that, and then you're like, you're talking to each other saying like, oh, we're gonna have to buy more crickets. So like, I'm laughing because I'm thinking like, these guys are prepared to replace and fix their mistake. But
yeah, I was like, at this point, it's like, who gives a shit? It's $1,000. We'll just do it.
I mean, by all means, there were fewer crickets because they cannibalize. So like, as soon as they get hungry, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, because
they got food.
We didn't feed them. There was no water.
I'm surprised they did it without water for so long.
Yeah, I mean, and they were just, I guess, and the cold.
And then the cold, I think, too,
was going to kill them.
Not having the food and the water and then having the cold hit in the middle of that, my thought would be for sure gone. But it turns out they're pretty resilient. Well, the nice thing, too, is these are generation farm crickets that I got off this guy, right? So he's been breeding them for a while now.
Well, I think the best.
But still, holy
I mean,
crap.
really, the best lesson from that is that you never had to go there every second day.
I never had to go there
You
day.
could have gone once a week.
I'd probably still be farming crickets if I knew I only had to go once a week.
Way less work. You're doing way too much. Yeah, I think, and I mean, that was nearing the end, I think.
I can't remember when I got rid of them. It must have been February or something. Yeah, it was. It would have been January or so.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was when I started seeing Tanya, and I know it was before that because she never had the pleasure of meeting my crickets. So yeah, at the end, I managed to put up a posting, and I found a guy who was already interested in doing it, and he was looking for a partner. So what happened with him was, instead of starting things himself, he just took over what I had. He took on my crickets, and I gave him all the information I had, and I was working with him for a little bit, just helping him with stuff. I never managed to go there because he was busy or I was busy, and now it's been too long, but.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I remember when you were thinking about stopping and you had started seeing Tanya, and at this point you're in a new living situation. You have a new business, and then now you have a new girlfriend. Yeah. And you still have a job.
Yeah.
So at this point, you're just running all over the place, and that's when you had to make the decision. Do I want to keep going with the business, or do I want to go see and experience? And because at this point you're spending your money on the business too, not on other things. So at this point it was like,
the money I'd saved up was pretty much gone at that point. It was basically my paycheck was any money I made was just going to the business.
And at that point it was the kind of, okay, do I want to go have fun and experience more of BC and spend time with the new girl?
Yeah.
Or continue that? And you chose to go and see more. And
I knew it wasn't to the point where I was like, okay, if I push a little bit harder, this is going to happen. It was the point where I had realizations where it was a big leap. It wasn't a few more pushes. It was going to be, okay, do I want to make this next massive step to try to set up all this food stuff to where maybe I'll do well with it, maybe I won't. Is this what I really want to be doing right now? And then, I was thinking, do I want to be spending all of my time at a fly farm and a cricket farm, and then here and there trying to live life and do some stuff in this new province I'm at, in this new location. So, and
I think too, I mean, because how the overall time you were doing that was probably what, like 6 months,
something like 6 months, 7 months.
So I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's quite short. I think the other thing is, when you had met me at the perfect time that all of my stuff was working out. So when you see, maybe it's inspirational to see someone doing that and that you want to be doing that. But not realizing how much.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
by all means. I know you had a few years beforehand
oh,
where,
at least, I mean, and I had days, 16, we'd be working 16 hours a day every single day. And that's all we did. And it finally started to work out at the same time as we had sold the house, which was convenient. But,
yeah,
I think, yeah, when you get into it, you really start to realize like, okay, like shit, this is a lot of work. This is a lot of learning, a lot of new things. And you have to really be willing to put, if you're not going to, it doesn't make sense sometimes to just do a little bit on the side. You've really got to go all in. And I think you were at that point of, am I really going to go in and do this as hard as I can and put all the effort in, or do I want to, experience other things? And I don't think you made a bad choice. There's nothing wrong. Or there's nothing wrong.
I think I knew
with
at that point too, I got what I was going to get from it, from what I was doing. And I knew by all means I could have jumped in the deep end with it. And I just hit that point where I'm like, it's not what I'm here for right now. It's something that I can fall back on. And I've learned all the lessons I've gotten from it. I think it would have just been not a waste of time, because who knows where it could have went, but it wasn't what I think I wanted to do at the time. It wasn't my
and I mean,
plan.
I think that being able to make that decision in itself is great, because if you would have just, for me, it's hard for me to decide on things sometimes. I hold on to things a lot. And I mean, for that, you had this thing that you'd put the money into. So sometimes it's hard because you've put the time and the money and you're thinking, shit, like I'm going to lose on this, but you're going to win in other places anyways. And you had figured that out, and you just made the choice. You said, okay, you know what? I'd done this. I invested the money. I learned, and that's what happened. You accepted it and you moved on. And, being able to make that choice is, I think that's an awesome
coming
thing.
out, it was a different type of education that I was getting versus in school versus finding this out.
And that's the thing. If you look at it that way, as growth and learning, I mean, sure, you may have lost money, but you gained a lot of value out of skills and things. And if you have that stuff, if you ever want to go back to the crickets, you can do that, and you'll be able to get to that same step right away, because you have all those things in place. You know what you'll need to do, and instead of 6 months, you could probably do it in a week. You'd be where you were before. So I think just being able to do that and knowing how things would flow and everything else.
Yeah, back when I was leading up to doing it by myself, making my own decisions, right or wrong, is by all means. I don't mind saying that I think it was a failed endeavor, but I think I got all the lessons from it. I spent the money, I learned different things, and now next time I go at it, I have that education and experience from doing that, to where I don't think my next thing will be crickets, but by all means, if in a year or 6 months or 5 years or 10 years, whatever, I find something else I'm really passionate and I want to do, I realize too the passion that I want to have behind it, because if you don't like doing it, if you wouldn't do it for free, if you're doing it thinking like, oh, I'm going to make a buck off it eventually, you have to be in a different mindset with how you're going about it. To where I wasn't there with it. I didn't have the passion to go 3 years without making a buck. I was thinking like, oh, probably what a lot of people think is they're like, yeah, it's okay if it doesn't make money for the first 2-3 months, whatever, it'll be fine. It's like, in reality, it could be friggin' 5 years. Like, you never know.
Yeah, and it always takes a long time. I mean, for me, and even with my experiences, it always takes twice as long and twice as much money, and then usually twice as long and twice as much as that. So it's crazy how fast, and especially when you get working and you're going and you're moving and you're into it, the time just goes by like so fast. I mean, I can't believe the years that have gone by for me, and it seems like, you look back and you think you're not getting anything done, and it doesn't seem like you're really doing much. And then you look back in a year and you think, holy shit, I haven't done anything but put my head down and work.
Yeah. Well, that's the weird thing too, is me looking back on this past year, because I've been here for almost a year and a half now, not quite. And it's weird looking back, even when we're talking about all this stuff, saying like, this is what I've done in the last year. Whereas I could have stayed in Ontario and done whatever and probably hung out with my same friends, maybe put a down payment on a house, which is boring, like all this other dumb stuff. Like, and it's not dumb. It's a life to live, but
not what you're after right now.
It's, I never could have guessed any of the stuff I would have ended up doing, but I never would have guessed I'd have an 85 Volkswagen truck that I didn't know existed, or that I'd start and run a cricket farm, whatever. Even that I'd fall into a relationship, all this different stuff. It's all weird. And then even I guess we get to the next thing is that this relationship too. Now that we've been dating a while, she's moving back to France, and now it's looking like I'm going to France now.
So because she grew up in Paris.
Yeah, she was born actually in the Caribbean, and she spent a lot of her younger years in France. And so that's where she's kind of got her bearings there. And then she ended up going to school in Switzerland and then coming to UBC for her university education.
Yeah.
So now that she doesn't know what to do yet with her life, she's planning on graduating, and she's going to go back to France for a while. And we're serious enough to say that, well, what am I going to do? And you know what? I packed it up and moved, and I'm not stoked either way on doing it again, but I know last time I wasn't sure what I felt, and I knew it wasn't a bad decision, and this time I don't think it's a bad decision either, which is a horrible way to go in things, depending who's listening. But it's something that, again, it's honestly too, again, it's where if I go and after a month I say, you know what, I'm sick of not knowing the language well enough. I know some French, but
yeah. So even that, like,
can always turn around
here. Yeah. Okay. You can just drive home or fly home, and it's the same thing there. I mean, you ain't going to drive, but you can get back on a plane and you can come back here. You can go back to Ontario, or you can go somewhere else. You can do whatever. But that, I mean, coming to BC, you're in your own country and you're speaking, and it's easy to get along with people. Whereas over there, it's definitely going to be a bigger shift of culture and language.
Yeah. Culture's going to be way more different.
So it's going to be a lot different life. But again, I think it'll be a really good experience. And at the end of the day, I mean, you just nothing but learn. And
yeah, it's just constantly putting myself under the new pressures to learn more and do different stuff. And always try to be advancing in whatever the heck I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool, because I know, I mean, even for me, I've thought about traveling or going to live somewhere else. And I mean, I can travel easily. I'm not a long-term traveler, I don't think. I've never gone anywhere for, longer than probably 3-4 weeks. But I'll go, but I know I'm coming home. And I think it would be very tough for me to do something like that, like just pack up. And I mean, moving to France, the nice thing is that you have Tanya that you will be with, and she lived there, and it'll be a little bit easier to work your way in. But even for me, like if I was going to go to Ontario right now, to Toronto or something, or anywhere, I think I don't know, it's still something that it would be tough. It'd be tough for me to do that. And I mean, I think it's, when you think about doing it, the feeling of it for me is like, it feels like exhilarating, like you're going to be free and it's going to be all this new stuff, but it's also, scary and hard to put yourself out there. And people are a lot of times, I think, really nervous to make those moves. But, I mean, I think you're at the perfect age. Well, anyone who's, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's ever a wrong age, even if you're 50 or 60 or if you're 90, you want to go experience something new. I don't think it's ever too late. So,
well, the thing too is you got to realize too, is like, you make the move, and so many people think like, okay, this place is going to be amazing, wonderful, whatever. But you show up and you're the same person you were before you got on the plane.
Yeah.
Now you're here. And then you have to realize too, that now you're the same person, but your friends aren't there. Your family's not there. Like the place you normally go get food on Fridays isn't there. Like your family farm's not there. Like your dog's not around. Like it's a lot of the little stuff too they don't realize. And even still looking back, like by all means, I'm comfortable in BC, but in terms of saying home, I'm still referring to Ontario always, because it's always the home thing that wherever you grew up, I think is kind of going to always be your home, just because that's where you have all those comforts and things.
Yeah.
But either way, you got to show up and make the best of where you are. And not that you have to make the best, but you have to go figure it out still.
Yeah.
It's all work, but it's all worth it. You're building something.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, I think the idea of the new or the newness or that kind of feeling wears off fast, where you get there and then you realize all those little things. You're like, oh shit, like no friends, everything that you listed. It's just the little places. Like for me, there'd be no Wendell's. I don't know what the hell I do. Where the hell am I going to eat? So, I'm so used to being down here in Fort Langley and going to all the places that, I don't know. It's that comes quick, and you go around and you want to show everybody you're at this new place and everything's cool, and you take photos, and then 3 weeks goes by, and you're kind of like, you've taken
Yeah.
all the photos and you've showed and done these things, and then that's I think when it can really start to hit and wear off, because initially you're excited, but that excitement after you start to see and fit it and get in there a little bit, it's probably the breaking point where a lot of people are like, okay, like, I don't know if I want to stay. I mean, I hear so many people who book these travels like, I'm going across the world for 2 years, and then they're back in less than 2 months, because that 1 month time hits and they've kind of seen the shit.
It's all cool and fun, and then you realize this is your life now.
And they see their friends on social or whatever doing
you get
shit.
the FOMO from they're having a party at buddy's house, and you go, I want to be at that party.
So, but I think it's pretty awesome that you were able to come this far and stay here for as long as you have, and now you've got a new journey coming up that's going to be in a whole new country with a whole new language. And I mean, you still don't have a job lined up there yet?
No. No, not
so
really.
You got to do the visa and get everything. And
I'm in the middle of figuring out my paperwork before I apply, and I got it all kind of figured out. A little bit of plans, but again, it's kind of like, I understand what the long term is going to look like, but I'm not worried about it that much. I'll figure it out.
Oh yeah, well that'll be good. We're gonna have to come visit you over there and
100%.
Check it out, and you can show us around, and
I'm gonna have all my French stuff figured out by then. I'll have my place. I buy baguettes and
you won't have a shortage of coffee there though.
Tons of coffee shops, chocolate croissants to make me happy, all this other stuff. So we'll see how it goes. It should be a interesting time. I don't think I'm gonna starve there or die there. I'm gonna do pretty well, I think.
Well, we'll have to do another episode when you're back too. We'll hear about all the adventures of your France France move for the next year.
See what the French Shelby and Jamie look like.
Oh yeah, no, that'll be good. We'll definitely have to make it over there. Is there anything that you want to say or close with?
I guess tackling just coming back to the traveling thing, all I can think is it's like the best and worst decision, but it's definitely a good one. It's because again, coming back to moving here is like when you think you're gonna buy something, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna buy this bag or this set of headphones, whatever, like something cool that you think's awesome, and you think like, oh, my life's gonna be better when I buy this thing. Like everybody's had this where they buy it and then they go, okay, I'm the same person. I'm just sitting here and now I have this new thing, but also I spent a bunch of money on it. I could have spent money on this or that, whatever. But in this case, the thing is where I'm living, and then the money is time.
Yeah.
Where you have to decide whether you want to spend your time on it and realize where you want to allocate things. Right before I moved, actually, I was talking to my one friend, and he had just bought a house. He's moved in with his girlfriend and all this other stuff, and I was talking to him about it, and he's like, he was kind of jealous, but I was talking to him about it, and he says, I wish I could do something like that. And he's like, but I got my broomball league, I got my ice hockey. He's like, I coach my girlfriend's little brother's hockey team, all this other stuff. So he's like, I'm not unhappy with what I got. He's like, I really like what I have. He's like, I wish I could do that stuff, but it's not kind of the life I chose. And it's something that stuck to me, the fact that he knows that it's not an opportunity he really has anymore, but he's grateful for what he has. And it just makes me realize that I have this chance to do something. I'm a single guy. I'm capable to do it. So it's kind of like, why not? Everything else can wait. Like,
you can.
When I come home in a year or 2 years, I guarantee I'll miss certain experiences for sure, but I'll come back, and all my friends that were going to stay there have stayed there. They're all doing pretty much the same stuff. They still go to the same place on Thursdays to get chicken wings, all this other stuff. You feel like you're going to miss out on a lot more than you are, but in the long run, I think 10 years down the road, you're not going to regret the year you went and did this or that, but you're going to have all those experiences and lessons, all these lessons that I ended up walking away with that I think there's no way I would have had all these different chances to have these opportunities, mistakes, and lessons. And
it's just
that I ended up having here.
Yeah, and meeting all the new people and everything.
Yeah, and the whole
everything
network,
that you've done,
getting out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Pushing that zone is one of the hardest things I think for people to do, And that, from this conversation, I'm hoping that it will inspire some people who
Yeah.
are out there thinking about doing that and moving somewhere else, but they haven't. And hearing how your experience has been and all the things you've tried and the people you've met, and now you've met someone else and you're going to Europe and you're going to be doing all these other things. So yeah, I'm hoping it'll help some other people decide and take action to do the same thing, and
Yeah, I hope so too.
and get out there. Yeah, so I guess that's it. I wanted to say thanks for coming out and sharing everything and moving to BC and being able to become friends. And
Yeah, I'm glad we had this time.
yeah, we'll have to come out to France, and we'll have to do another one of these and hear all about it.
Paris piss ups or something. Weird. Yeah, look forward to that.
Awesome. Okay, well, yeah. Until next time.
Until next time then.